Dylan.
And I'm Keon.
And this is Inevitable, that podcast where we continue to wade knee-deep into the water fully clothed, because this week we watched Dance of the Dead.
Written by Anthony Skene.
Directed by Don Chaffee.
And aired on November 17th, 1967. So we're finally here. We're finally at Dance of the Dead. My favorite episode of this show.
And as predicted, I was kind of underwhelmed.
You probably would have liked it a lot if I hadn't hyped it up for the past 7 weeks.
No, I don't think so. The whole episode kind of fell apart for me about 3/4 of the way through. I was pretty interested right up until they... Well, I guess we'll get there.
That's where it gets good. 3/4 of the way through for me is once they go to the party, that's where it's oh man, this is getting good.
Oh, well, I guess maybe it's more 7/8 of the way through it falls apart for me then.
In the last 5 seconds, it just goes from a 10 out of 10 to a 1.
I mean, no, this is far from the worst episode of The Prisoner. Far from it. It's like a 6.5 or a 7.
Yeah, that's pretty low. I don't think I would classify any episode of The Prisoner as a 6.5 or a 7 out of 10. I think they're all 8s or higher.
I can't even remember half the episodes of The Prisoner we've watched, so that doesn't bode well.
Perfect then, because from here on out, I don't remember anything. So you don't remember the first half, and I'll just not remember the second half, and we'll be good. Cover our bases there.
Oh boy.
So, Dance of the Dead.
I didn't really find much production information for this. Although, on that note, my mystical book of production information is still missing. Although I've been communicating with the seller of the book and they offered to send me a replacement. So I guess maybe at some point I might have 2 books show up, or maybe 1, or maybe neither. Honestly, at this point, with the way that our president is just completely kneecapping the United States Postal Service, it might be years before I get it. That guy on Reddit who's I ordered something and then I thought it got lost in the mail and then it arrived 2 years later. On the bright side, apparently the South African Postal Service is doing a lot worse than the US one. A lot of people on Reddit are damn, the South African Postal Service sucks. And someone commented the Postal Service is still running, and someone is yes, it's just like our police department. God. And I was oof. Yikes.
God.
So I guess when the acronym for your postal service is SAPS. Anyway.
Yeah, the only real interesting thing I found for the production of this one, which shout out to this site that I'll put in the show notes that said this, unsourced, completely, no indication where they got this from, just throwing this claim out there, including it in their write-up. The court scene was apparently inspired by a short story called The Devil and Daniel Webster.
Huh.
Which is a short story that probably most people are not familiar with, but if you are, on the off chance that you are American and you're listening to this, you probably, which I know Sergeant Drano is, shout out to Sergeant Drano, you probably know of a short story called The Devil and Tom Walker, which is a way more famous story, which this story, The Devil and Daniel Webster, I feel might be inspired by, but I've never heard of the Devil and Daniel Webster before, so I don't know.
Oh man, which website is this? First off, and second off, we definitely have more than one American listening to this show, because as of 2 weeks ago, Inevitable is finally doing Trust Your Doctor numbers in terms of downloads.
Heck yeah, and it only took less than a year compared to the Trust Your Doctor like timeline of file 6 years.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, what website is making these unsourced claims that every week we quote unsourced claims on this show, but I guess I'm just curious to know which one it is this
I don't
week.
even know. I'll put it in the show notes, like I said, but I haven't used this site before this week, so yeah.
Well, one of the sites I use, which is the good old Pop Apostle. Do you pronounce it apostle or apostle? Well, anyway.
I pronounce it apostle.
A postal. Gonna be a postal themed episode of Inevitable. One of the key sites I use, Pop Apostle, makes this assertion at some point that says, according to the Wikipedia entry for this episode, the music box theme heard throughout is a piece of stock music originally composed by Robert Farnon entitled Drum Dramatics No. 2. It was prominently used as the original melody for Josette Dupre's music box in the classic gothic soap opera Dark Shadows. It first appeared in episode 236, broadcast 22nd May 1967, some 6 months before the Dance of the Dead episode aired, except if you go to the Wikipedia page, that assertion is there, but it's just randomly just thrown in the notes and is also uncited. So this website cites Wikipedia as a source, and then Wikipedia didn't cite its source at all. So
maybe they got it from the site.
Yeah, that'd be kind of a weird, like, circular dependency tree.
Yeah, that's all I had. I didn't have anything else.
Yeah, I don't have anything else except for the fun fact that this is the only episode where female number 2's voice is heard over the title credits.
Huh. Yeah.
Because it's not the only female number 2 we've had, but, like, the last female number 2, they obfuscated her identity by having a guy's voice play over the main credits, and then in Chimes of Big Ben.
Free for All, you mean?
Free for All. Number 2 is only revealed at the end of the episode.
Yeah. Oh, I did have something else, actually. So this was the 4th in production order. And apparently it was actually supposed to air earlier on, and chronologically you can tell very clearly this is an early episode, if not the second episode. But apparently Patrick McGoohan wasn't pleased with the episode, so it was pushed back. I don't know why, like, pushing it back helps that, but...
Because you'll remember it less, I guess.
Maybe, yeah.
It's like how people remember the first guy on the moon, and then, like, the last guy on the moon, but then, like, nobody in the middle.
Yeah, maybe. Midnight Only, actually, this isn't making of, but Midnight Only asserts that this is not one of the most beloved episodes of The Prisoner. Whereas in my history with the show, I've seen this cited as being one of people's favorites. Like, anytime I've seen people just on Twitter or just, like, on the internet at large saying, like, their top 5 of The Prisoner or whatever, like, this one I feel like is often in those top 5 lists.
Let's see where Anorak Zone ranked it in its 2007 or 2017 50th anniversary re-ranking of all the episodes.
Dead last.
No, apparently Do Not Forsake Me, Oh My Darling is dead last.
That's one of those episodes that I have no memory of. Yeah.
Oh, it ranks it quite highly. It ranks at number 1.
So it is number 1. Huh. Wow.
According to Anorak Zone, who is, I guess, just the
foremost prisoner,
the authority on this. Why did it take me so long to find that word?
Yeah. So wow, this episode itself is number 1, huh?
Huh. Anorak Zone asserts that Mary Morris's number 2 was originally written as a man before Trevor Howard, who was cast as number 2 originally dropped out.
Huh. Well, there's nothing really, I think, gender specific to that character, right?
If you think about it, there's nothing really gender specific about any of the characters except for the fact that number 2 apparently just like hates women or something.
You mean number 6?
Number 6, god damn it.
Yeah, there are a few specific characters that are gender specific, but most of them, are not.
Animax Zone also asserts that not only did McGowan push it back, he actually shelved the entire episode, and one of the editors was just like, hey, can I try and edit it again? And McGowan was like, I mean, sure. I mean, we shelved it. And then after that, they decided to air it as the 8th episode.
He was probably just saying that because it wasn't like his own script and his own directing. But yet again, Anthony Skene, I think, is proving himself to be one of the best writers for the show. I think it was Midnight Only who said that Anthony Skene got the show perhaps more than even Patrick McGowan himself.
Yeah, Anthony Skene has proven himself to be the most reliable and interesting writer for the show.
I think this is his last script, though. I don't think he comes back.
Anthony, no! Anthony, you were the chosen one.
You were supposed to save the prisoner, not abandon it.
Damn, he only writes 2 episodes. How sad.
I thought he wrote
3
3
episodes, sorry.
I thought
three.
Three. Yeah. Because he wrote this week, he wrote last week, and he wrote
A, B, and C.
A, B, and C, yeah.
Damn, I wonder which of these is my favorite episode. I think it might still be Chimes of Big Ben.
Yeah, like, as you mentioned, you always remember the first couple. So maybe that one just stood out because it was like number 2.
It was number 2. Alright, so the episode starts with the title sequence as usual, and maybe because I was watching this in like... I wasn't watching this super late at night, but I was watching this in the... I have been exhausted for the entire past week and been sleeping like absolute garbage, so I was like half asleep watching this entire episode.
I feel that's somehow fitting for this episode, though. Like, I feel like that's somehow how you should watch Dance of the Dead, is like half asleep.
I do think that, like, for a lot of the episode, that kind of heightened the experience. Although, like, again, I'm going to explain why the episode doesn't quite land for me later on when we finish explaining the plot. But anyway, during the title sequence, again, maybe this is just me being half asleep. Did I miss number 6 asking what they wanted? Because to me, it just seemed like number 2 just went straight into "we want information."
Yeah,
did I miss
might have been
something?
I don't remember. They're not all exactly the same as we've already seen, so yeah, it could have been that he didn't ask.
I didn't go back to rewatch it because it's not really like that big of a deal.
Chronologically, this is probably supposed to be second, so maybe number 6 hasn't like decided to ask that question of every number 2 yet, you know?
Yeah, I mean, again, Animax Zone asserts that this was written as the second episode, like definitively this was second.
Yeah, I don't know like how well that would have even worked. Like, this is probably the most like esoteric episode of the 8 we watched so far, definitely, and one of the most in the entire show. I don't know how well this would have gone down as like the second episode broadcast. I think once you're at this point in the show, like, this episode really works, and the way it kind of just goes into this weird, like, almost dream sequence type thing at the end really works, but, like, I think before this, you might want some more concrete stuff, you know?
Yeah. I don't think... I mean, I guess if you're trying to assemble chronologically, I could see how this would be second, but I think from a viewer appreciation standpoint, you'd want to put this like at least third or fourth. Like you said, I think you want a couple more like concrete episodes under your belt before you get into something like this, which is a lot more abstract.
Yeah. And that's basically what happened. I mean, we got Chimes of Big Ben second.
Honestly, I think Chimes of Big Ben, like, of all the episodes we've watched so far, was like the best episode to put second.
Oh, really? I think Arrival was. No.
Well, Except maybe you could put Many Happy Returns second, I guess, because it's very
A, B,
similar.
and C was first. You're just thrown into this weird plot.
Where they're invading his mind.
I feel like at the end of this, because we're inevitably going to come up with our own order in the last episode, it's going to happen. And I feel like we're just going to take it as a total joke and like just make it as weird as possible.
Oh man, imagine putting Schizoid Man first and you're just thrown in with like this double and you don't even know who the real number 6 is and like what's going on.
Yeah.
I mean, already the greatest order is to go Schizoid Man, A, B, and C, chimes of Big Band Arrival. Duh.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Anyway, this episode kind of throws you in right at the beginning too, because some doctor who I think is credited as doctor, but is actually number 40, I believe, is doing some
40.
experiment on number 2 where he's number 6 where he's trying to break his mind.
Yeah, he has his lackey, whose name becomes really important later on, but for some bizarre reason I never wrote it down.
Oh, Dutton?
Dutton.
Yeah.
Call number 6 and be like, hey, the committee wants to know everything. And I'm like, getting more backstory on like number 6's prior barbershop activities with the committee of barbers.
Was that Dutton at the beginning? I never picked up on that.
Yeah, that's Dutton.
Huh. So they actually, oh wow.
At least as far as I'm aware, again, I watched this when I was half asleep.
Yeah,
But
I'm looking
to me,
at the cast.
pretty
I
sure
don't
it
see
was-
anyone who would be. I don't see anyone whose name is like. There's 2 people credited as doctors, so that's interesting. But yeah, I don't see anyone who like could be. With, God, what am I saying? I don't see anyone who has a title in the credits that would be like a guy who calls number 6 on the phone or something like that.
Yeah, a couple of the websites that I use, like Papa Parcel, and also I think the Wikipedia plot summary assert also that this man is Dutton who calls number 6.
Yeah, I never realized that. Wow. But anyway, the experiment is stopped by number 2.
Yeah, because number 6 is slowly like breaking down during this phone call. Like mentally, his mind is breaking down.
Right, and she comes in the room and she says that he won't be won over by force. They have to convince him to give them what they want.
Using
Hypnosis.
other methods. So
Number 6 wakes up, and I love that line where, because he wakes up and he sees number 2 on the television, and he goes, "How did I sleep?" Which is like funny, but also chilling. Like they're watching him in his sleep. Or they know, and
but
they
we
know
knew
more
that,
about him.
right?
We knew that, but like, since this episode comes second, also like they know
Allegedly.
Yeah, since they know way more about him than he does. Like you as in like people in general don't know how they look when they sleep, but like if you're watching someone as you sleep, like more about them than they do in some sense.
Yeah, because it's an invasion of privacy, or privacy if you're British. Invasion of privacy.
Mm-hmm.
So, number 2 is wearing the classic, iconic number 2 scarf. She's wearing it over the same shoulder that number 2 in Arrival did, as far as I remember, which is her left shoulder.
Yeah, she and I was gonna say she and Leo McKern, 2 of the most legendary ones, but no, Leo McKern was not in Arrival, unfortunately.
He was chimes of Big Ben.
Yeah.
She's wearing an orange shirt that, in my mind, doesn't match the scarf at all, but hey, she's rocking it. She's rocking it.
Yeah, she's one of the I don't know what word she's one of the friendliest number 2s, I would say.
Most personable.
Yeah, and that's why I think at the end when she has that moment at the end where she gets kind of sinister, I think that lands because of that.
Yeah.
Anyway, there's a carnival and dance coming up. And number
Number
six.
2 wants number 6 to go.
Yeah.
But only if number 6 finds a girlfriend or a lady friend
Yeah.
or something. He immediately picks out some lady and she's like, no, anyone except her. And you're like, wait, why? Because you find out that this is number 240 is number 6's observer, so to speak.
Right. She and number 6 have a cryptic conversation where he's trying to figure out whether she's a prisoner or a warden or what her entire deal is, and he can't. Oh, we should also mention that the black cat is back.
Yeah.
And it's number 2's cat.
Allegedly.
Allegedly, yeah. Even though animals are not allowed in the village.
Yeah. I was going to say, also, like, does that mean this cat belongs to number 2? Or, like, specifically to this number 2? You know?
I always took it as well, first of all, if she's not lying, that it belonged to her specifically as like a person and not the role of number 2, because we don't really see any of the other number 2s with the cat, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, as far as I know. At least, yeah. As far as I know, which is all the episodes we've watched so far.
Yeah.
Unless the number 2 in Many Happy Returns is just like joking with number 6 by leaving his cat there. The cat, I should say.
Yeah, I just don't know. If it comes back, I don't remember.
I guess we'll see.
So, number 6 tries to go to the town hall, but it's protected by a force field.
Yeah.
He sees a little statue in there. It actually looks kind of creepy when he looks in, because it's supposed to be a town hall, but it's literally just an empty room that looks almost like Greek or Roman. There's just a statue inside.
Yeah, really effective set design in this episode, I think, is one of the strengths. Just the entire like interior that we get later on with number 2 and the secret rooms, and also at the party, like it's all really well done, really well hidden redress of the command room.
Yeah. Some guy comes.
I just wanted to.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was just going to mention the guy who comes up to number 6 and he's like, "Hey, you can't go in there." Number 6 is like, "Oh."
I was going to say, I wanted to make a quick note here that I found out this week that in real prisons you can't have pets either, which makes sense, but wasn't anything I'd ever thought of. In catching up with podcasts, and one of the podcasts I listened to had like a crossover with the podcast Ear Hustle, which is a podcast produced by inmates, well, and now a former inmate at the San Quentin prison in the Bay Area of California. And they were talking about like pets and how you can't have pets in the prison, and how there's one inmate who always loved animals and like takes care of any animals they find in the prison yard, like snails, and we call them critters because they're not pets because he doesn't claim ownership over them. They're critters because they're his friends, and the birds and everything. Very interesting episode. I'll link it in the show notes. But I just found that interesting because then after listening to that, like 2 days later, I watched this and they're like, "You're a prisoner here. You're not allowed pets." And I'm like, huh, weird. Just a weird coincidence, I guess, in my life.
Yeah, you mean you can't just have like a Rottweiler, like that could like attack the wardens and such?
Well, some prisons have instituted programs where prisoners are able to train dogs through like these programs that bring in these dogs, and then the prisoners basically pick a dog and that's their dog, and they train it and take care of it so that the dog can then go and be adopted by someone all trained and everything.
Uh-huh.
And that I seem to remember reading or hearing, because this might have been on the same podcast, that those kind of programs have had a lot of success in rehabilitating inmates, and are generally like really successful programs. Actually, it was on that podcast because they had another episode specifically about a lady who ran one of those programs and then like fell in love with one of the inmates who was training her dogs, and then helped break him out of prison.
Break him out as in like escape style?
Yes. Yes.
Uh,
I'll see if I can find which episode that was and link it in the show notes too. I've been catching up on podcasts. I've been walking a dog this week, and that's what I listen to while I walk the dog.
huh.
Anyway, I guess the mail also is like delivered on a penny farthing in this episode. So that was an interesting twist.
Oh, is this a scene where number 6 gets his suit?
Well, he gets his invitation. You see the mailman show up on like a penny farthing, like through the door. It's just kind of. This is a little earlier. I was just going back because I thought that was kind of weird.
Huh, yeah, I actually didn't pick up on that. Number 6 does get his suit, though. It's like delivered to him, even though he didn't request it.
Well, yeah. So the number 6 has been getting breakfast every morning from number 31, who's like, I think number 31, who's like the maid, but she's been dressed up in like a Victorian era ball gown, and then on the final day before the festival, she shows up in a maid outfit, and number 6 is like, sorry, this is number 54. Number 31 is the other maid. And so number 54 shows up in a maid outfit and explains to number 6 that you don't get to pick your own costume for the party. You pick someone else's costume, and it's like kind of like a game. So that means somebody else, probably number 2, picked number 6's costume to be just his suit.
Yeah, which is almost the same as what they did for her, right? She's the maid, and the costume they picked for her, which is supposed to be like a fake. Like the costumes, like themselves, are supposed to be like, you know, disguises, facades, whatever. She is actually a maid, but her costume is a maid. So same thing with number 6. His costume is literally just himself.
But then when they get to the party, like everybody else has got cool, wicked, awesome costumes.
Yeah.
Number 6 is having none of this party stuff, so he decides to try and escape for the like 10th time this season.
I guess if you go by like the idea that this is episode 2, then I guess this is the first time he's tried to just like run out on the beach and escape that way. Unless, did he try that in Arrival? I forget.
Yes, because that's how he ends up in the hospital.
Oh, yeah.
Because Rover takes him down.
Which, same thing here. Rover doesn't take him down. It more just stares him down. And he just gives up.
And then he finds a body.
Yeah. Finds a dead body washed up on the beach. Records a little message. And sends it out to sea.
Yeah, so I think he finds the body, and then he kind of stores it in a cave and takes the radio. And then number 2 kind of corners him when his observant 240 is like, oh, he's got a radio. And number 2's like, what do you listen to there, number 6? And he's like, And so number 2 takes the radio away and is like, silly boy. And then he decides to go use the body to send a message. And while he's there, that's when he meets / sees Dutton.
Right. Dutton is someone that he knew from his previous life, whatever that previous life was.
His clown days. Fellow
somehow
clown.
I can't imagine the guy who plays Dutton like being a clown, like somehow even more than Patrick McGowan, which...
I was going to say, you can imagine Patrick McGowan as a clown, but not Dutton.
I know, like I said when we first mentioned this whole clown thing, like I can't even imagine Patrick McGowan smiling.
Alan White plays Dutton.
Mm-hmm.
He was mentored by Peter Finch, apparently.
Huh. Well...
Oh, Peter Finch, who played Howard Beale in the 1976 film Network. That's where I know the name.
Oh, yeah. No, I don't know what you're talking about.
Network is if you ever want to watch an incredibly prescient, like uncomfortably prescient movie, watch Network.
Mm.
Network's a movie made in 1976. I know I've described it on Trust Your Doctor. I don't know if I've described it on Inevitable, but I'm going to. A movie about a news reporter who gets fired because his news show is not bringing in the ratings. So he says he's going to kill himself live on air, and that starts to bring in more ratings. And basically, like, they start using him to sensationalize the news because it brings in ratings and it basically outlines like how news becomes sensationalized. And like Walter Cronkite denounced the film by saying like news would never do that. Come 20 years later, and here we are. But anyway.
Well, it turns out Dutton is like slated for death. So he thinks. He doesn't know that for sure yet, although it's true.
Yeah, he suspects because he believes that his usefulness has been expended because he told them everything they wanted to know, and he said the great irony of the whole thing is that they don't even believe him.
Right. So another mix-up of truth and falsehood here, kind of like the costumes in a way.
Right.
And I don't really even remember what number 6's response to this is. I think he's just like, oh.
So number 6 puts the body into the ocean and it floats away. And my note here is I half expected the body to just blow up, like as soon as it got far enough away, like it just blow up.
Why?
I don't know. Just like, because that would be the kind of like, screw you thing I would expect the village leadership to do to number 6.
I would expect it to be something like number 6 finds a body washed up on shore and it's face down. He flips it over and it's his face, like something like that.
In my half asleep state, that's what I thought happened. I'm going to come clean.
They do kind of flirt with that idea. You never actually get something like, oh yeah, it's actually a body double or it is your face, but like they kind of flirt with that idea later on when you find out like what all of this is about. Which I remember the first time I watched this episode, I thought the ending to this was 100% abstract. I didn't get that there was like an actual plan that they were executing within this. It is pretty abstract at the end, but there is like, there is a plan that number 2 has enacted. But I didn't get that the first time I watched it. I think it was the second time where I was like, oh, wait a minute.
Hang on a second.
And that's actually why I initially came to enjoy this episode so much, because I thought it just totally abandoned everything it set up and just went into sort of this like weird dream type thing.
It just abandoned traditional
storytelling.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I thought the first time I watched it, because I didn't get the plan, but yeah. That actually reduced my enjoyment of the episode when I found out, but hey.
Sad.
Whatever. Anyway, it's party time. But not
party
before.
Time.
But not before in number 2 actually confronts number 6 on the beach. She's dressed as Peter Pan. He's dressed as Wendy. No.
Well, so, traditionally, here's a fun fact for all you Peter Pan nerds in the audience. All 0 of you. Traditionally, in staged versions of the Peter Pan musical / play, historically, Peter Pan has been played by a woman because Peter Pan's supposed to be a young boy who never grows up, and it's easier to find a woman whose body build and like voice pitch matches that of what should be a young boy than it is to find like an old man. Imagine The Rock playing Peter Pan. That was just a vision I had while explaining that.
Ripped.
I'm a boy. Flies into the window. Let's go, Wendy. He just suplexes Captain Hook.
Oh, God.
John Cena is Captain Hook.
John Cena, one of the like actual surprisingly most decent celebrities out there.
Yeah, him and Keanu Reeves are like the most pure celebrities I know of. I'm pretty sure John Cena has like the record for granting the most Make-A-Wish Foundation wishes out of like anyone who works with the organization. Because he basically, like, if anyone wishes for anything from John Cena, he basically grants it.
Yeah, John Cena's out there making people's dreams come true, whereas other celebrities are just like doing coke and like egging people's houses.
What celebrity is walking around egging people's
Justin
houses?
Bieber did it.
For some reason, I was just thinking of like Jeff Goldblum egging someone's house now. I just wanted to throw some eggs on their house. I thought it would be fun.
Yeah, life found a way just a bit too much, so, gotta end those young chicken lives before they hatch and egg people's houses in the process.
Oh, you're assuming he's using fertilized eggs for his egging. Wow, is this some sort of rich people thing? Egging houses with fertilized eggs? Okay. Oh boy.
Anyway, like we were saying, number 2 confronts number 6. She and her shadow are like, it's time to party, number 6. Let's go. That's not actually what she says.
Papa Apostle asserts that number 6 and number 2's shadows in one of these scenes are like in different directions, which basically just reveals that there's studio lighting helping like light up the shot because the shadows are in different directions. I don't think it's on the beach, but it's around this time in the episode that they mention it.
But even that adds a more surreal touch to the episode, which I appreciate, considering what we get like now.
Well, apparently also the body that washes up on the shore is played by the prop guy for the show.
Becoming a prop himself, oh my god.
And the photo, there's the photo that number 6 pulls out of the guy's wallet, and there's a woman in that photo, and apparently that's the show's accountant.
Yeah. Somehow that meta stuff that in any other show would just be like a budget saving technique, like becomes part of this world, I think, in The Prisoner somehow.
Yeah. It's crazy.
Yeah. So they go to the party, everyone else is really dressed up in various period historical costumes / literary costumes.
/ just random nonsense.
Yeah, I guess, yeah. Number 240 is Bo Peep.
Damn, this is a real Toy Story crossover now.
Yeah, you just see some guy walk by as like Buzz Lightyear in the background.
They call the court together at the end of the episode, and the doctor just comes in dressed as Buzz Lightyear. Yeah. Number 2 offers number 6 a drink, and she's like, "You should drink," and he's like, "I never really drink," and I'm like, "But they don't really have alcohol in the village anyway, so."
I think wasn't it the doctor?
Right?
Wasn't the doctor who said I don't usually drink, or was it number?
No, it was definitely number 6.
Oh, okay.
Because I noticed it because number 6 made it out like a whole thing. He doesn't drink, but I was just like, well, they don't have alcohol in the village, so like you wouldn't even be able to drink anyway.
Yeah, I guess chronologically he doesn't know that yet.
He takes a sip of the champagne. He's like, "This is just sparkling grape juice or sparkling apple juice. Come on, guys."
Spits it out like Avon in that one episode of Lake 7. Anyway, everyone else is having a good time. Everyone else is dancing, but of course, number 6 / Patrick McGowan just can't do that. So he's trying to figure out what the village is all about. He's questioning number 240. He's saying things like, when was this place established? Was it before the war? Which war? Type thing.
Yeah, but number 2's not saying anything. She's just like, "Come on, man. Have fun. It's a party."
So he just leaves. At some point, he just, like, bails. He goes into a hallway and finds, like, a scientist coat on a coat rack, and is just like, "Hey, convenient disguise."
Yeah, I think this is number 40's coat. Even though the number he's wearing is 116. I kind of thought at first it was number 40's coat because number 40's dressed as Napoleon.
Yeah, probably, but like the area where he's in is like full of different. Well, I guess it's actually like a morgue and not a lab, but yeah, because we see that other lady.
The first area where he finds the coat is the area with the scene we completely skipped over, where number 2 is going into this room to report to someone, the mysterious people who run the village, and number 40 comes past, is like, are you going to make a report? And she's like, yeah. He's like, what are you going to tell him about, like, what I did to number 6 at the beginning of the episode?
He says that at the beginning of the episode.
And number 2's like, I'm just going to conveniently leave that out. And then he asks her to get a directive on what to do with Dutton because he's nearly exhausted his usefulness. And she's like, all right.
Yeah, that happens.
And that's like this hallway that he starts in. And then this woman comes out and is like, hey, can you take this to number 2? It's like, it's a kill order. Or termination order, I think she says. Yeah. And number 6 opens it up and it says whatever Dutton's full name was, like Ronald something Dutton.
Yeah, Roland Walter Dutton.
Every time I say Dutton, I think of Duggan from City of Death.
Dutton's number was apparently 42. Yeah.
Yeah.
This sheet of paper also looks kind of odd because instead of being a white sheet of paper with black text, it's a black sheet of paper with white text.
Except it's clearly like they clearly wasted all their printer ink to print the black on the one side of the paper because the back side of the paper is white. So he sees the kill order. He's like, well, I'm obviously not going to give this to number 2. And he just kind of shoves it in his pocket and he goes into this morgue and he opens some of the freezers and he finds the body that he found on the shore. And number 2's like, yeah, we're going to make him look like you and then dump him in the ocean. So people think you're dead.
She doesn't spell that out as explicitly as what you just did, though, which is why the first time I watched the episode, like, that plan completely, like, went over my head. Because she said something along the lines of, like, that's you in that casket, number 6, and we're going to send him out and the whole world is going to think it's you, which is pretty explicit, but I guess it wasn't explicit enough for me when I watched this in 2016.
Yeah, this is the point where the episode kind of went down a little for me. Not because I don't like this reveal, because I actually think this reveal is great, because I'm like, oh, that's such a great plan, but because I kind of wish that was the note the episode ended on, instead of the whole, like, I wish we had skipped the whole kangaroo court and just ended on the reveal that they're gonna fake his death and that they have the power to do that. Like, I don't know. In my mind, that's just how I wanted the episode to end.
There's another version of this episode where you could switch the conversation that number 2 and number 6 have here with the one they have at the end. And that obviously would create an entire different episode, but, like, yeah, that's an interesting thought of, like, switching that with this.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying there's another one. I should make myself clear, because there actually are other versions of these episodes. So when I say that, I don't mean that version actually exists. I'm just saying, like, it's a what if, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have anything. I'm not, like, opposed to the trial and everything after this. I just feel like it's made weaker for the fact that this, in my mind, is the big reveal of the episode and the big, like, we're going to break number 6. I almost really wish that they did the trial, and then when they all go to try kill him, then she reveals they're going to fake his death. Like, I kind of wish he didn't know that before the trial happened. But
yeah, well, we should probably explain what happens now, because this is where it gets, like, real Kafka-esque. Because he goes back into where they're holding the party, but the party is completely stopped for this trial that they're going to put him on. And the charges are that he was using a radio.
Gasp! A radio!
Well, it's a forbidden, like, item, I guess. Because the village has their own radios, so he was using like a non-village radio.
Terrible.
We should explain the setup too. So his defense is number 2. Freaking great! Like that's a great way to start off your trial, is have your defense be number 2. The prosecutor is number 240, and the judges. There's no jury. There's 3 judges. One of them is like dressed like an ancient Roman, like Julius Caesar or something. The other one is the doctor who is dressed up as Napoleon, and the other one is just some woman who looks like she's in a Victorian style outfit.
Yeah. So this trial's a farce.
Yeah,
Bo Peep presents evidence. Peter Pan makes a really, really bad case for his defense.
She also testifies against him.
Yeah, imagine going to trial. They're like, okay, you're on trial for like killing this guy, and then the prosecuting attorney goes up and is like, I'd like to call the defense attorney to the stand, and you just turn to your defense attorney like, what? And then he goes and just like testifies against you.
Pretty sure you're not like allowed to do that, but yeah, would suck.
Yeah, because how would you cross-examine yourself? You're like up there on the stand and you're like, so, did you do it? No, I didn't. Patrick says his misogynist line of the week, never trust a woman.
Even if it's of the 4-legged variety.
Yeah.
I think, yeah, he says that like when they're in the morgue, I believe. But yeah, they obviously find him guilty. And the sentence is death.
The sentence is death.
Because they don't know that he's already dead.
Every time I hear that sentence now, I can't stop thinking about like the greatest book title in all existence, the greatest book sequel title in like all existence, which is Anthony Horowitz wrote a mystery novel called The Word is Death, which is about an author like getting involved in a murder. And then he wrote a sequel. Sorry, yeah, The Word is Murder. And then he wrote a sequel called The Sentence is Death. Oh, it's so great.
Okay. I thought you were gonna be like, and he wrote the sequel, and it's The Word was Dead, or something.
So
this is one of the funniest scenes. I'm sorry, I just have to explain this because this is like one of my favorite moments of this show, where they tell him the sentence is death, and like everyone just goes silent. He doesn't really respond. He walks out. The crowd parts for him like the goddamn Red Sea. And he starts walking out, and he just breaks into a sprint, and they form an angry mob and start chasing him. Yep. So they have a little chase sequence. He winds up again in the same morgue and finds a little secret passage that he goes down.
Into, like, the basement.
Mm-hmm. He comes up in a room that's like behind a one-way mirror, and everyone outside is still searching for him. But number 240 and number 2 know he's in there, so they come inside, and number 2 like tells 240 to leave. And right before this, number 6 finds a telex machine, which I didn't know what a telex machine was. I had to look it up, but apparently it's like a kind of like a fax machine.
Facts before facts.
Yeah. Facts with a CTS. Number 6 destroys it, and then this is when number 2 comes in. And she's like, hey, they're still out there looking for you. Because they don't know that you're already dead.
Then the machine starts running again.
Yeah. Number 6 says, you'll never win. And then she says, then how very uncomfortable for you, old chap, and starts cackling. And the machine starts going. This exchange is... I know I mentioned it last week, but I'm going to use the same terminology. This scene sends a chill down my spine every single time I watch it. Just her transformation. It's almost reminiscent of the one in Free for All where what's her name becomes number 2 at the end, or what's her number, I should say. But yeah, I just love this. I love this scene.
Yeah. No, I mean, I liked it. Like I said, I kind of wish that they only revealed his dead doppelganger like at this moment.
Yeah, I could see that being incorporated into this scene perhaps more effectively than before. You know, because maybe there's some build up to be established where it's like number 6 sees the body, and then we don't because right after he sees it, we get the plan behind what it is. So there's not really too much tension there of like, whoa, why is the body now here, type thing.
Right.
But I'll say I like how it ends on the telex machine inexplicably like still working, even though its innards have been completely like destroyed. Just because I feel like this episode kind of really hints at what the village is all about, which is maybe a good case for it coming second. There's another scene that we somewhat glossed over that I really like in this episode, where it's right when number 6 leaves the party and puts on the disguise. Oh, disguise, quote unquote, because like who wouldn't be able to tell?
Who wouldn't know?
Where the first thing he does when he puts on the disguise is he first goes to a door on the left and tries to open it, and it's locked, and he goes to another door on the right, and he can't get through, it's locked as well. So he just goes straight down the middle, and when he does that, he walks through this line of statues, which, as other episodes indicate, the village uses these statues as like surveillance devices. But there's also the thing of like statues are from history. They're like people in the past. So like he can't, it's as if he can't really escape history. Like it has to still bear witness to him. And I think it just goes to show you that like, especially with his questioning earlier, like the village, or at least the ideas that brought it forth, have always been around. And like this has been brewing for a long time. Even if the technology wasn't there to implement something like this, like, you know, maybe it's always been this way, type thing. And I do feel like the telex machine kind of plays into that of like, it's total, like once the ball got rolling, it's totally unstoppable. Like you can't stop this you can't stop the village and the technology that they use from overtaking the world. Like those two kind of go hand in hand of like, once the tech was there to control people, dehumanize them, create like surveillance states and such, like it was inevitable. And it can't be stopped. Just like number 6 completely destroying the telex machine doesn't stop it, like there's no way that this can be stopped.
Yeah, like an unending wheel of progress. Or the unending wheel of trying to break number 6 every week.
Yeah. That's also the thing too, is like, I didn't really even realize this until this watch through, I think, but I always think that the ones where they're not trying to find out why he resigned and where they're instead just like trying to break him or just trying to mess with him, or even in this one where number 2 like barely even seems to have a plan that's actually in relation to him. Like her plan is to trick the outside world into thinking he's dead, like, which you know is related to him, but like not as directly as the other plans. But yet I feel that this, like, because of her cockiness, that's not the right word, but I can't think of the right word. Like, because of that, at the end, it comes across as so much more sinister than like some of the other number 2s who were like, get up in his face and like, why'd you resign?
That's kind of why I wish the body was revealed at the end, because it would be more of a like, you know, metaphorical middle finger to number 6.
Yeah.
Because it would have been like, not only are they trying to kill you, I'm going to fake your death too. Like, you're already dead.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, other than that, I just like how weird and abstract this gets.
Yeah, I mean, it was pretty good. I don't think I liked it as much as you. I mean, I know I didn't like it as much as you, actually. But it was pretty good. I mean, I did enjoy it. And I do think watching it half asleep kind of heightened the weird absurdity of the whole thing. Because a lot of my notes are just like, what is going on? What is happening? Literally, my final note for this episode is just the one word statement, what, with no question mark.
Yeah, that was my reaction, I think, the first time I watched it, which is why I liked it so much. And then, you know, the second watch through, when I actually found out that there was some sort of concrete plan behind this, I was like, oh man. Like,
when you realized there was a plan.
Yeah. But this is the first episode And this is also another case for this episode not coming second in broadcast order. Of like, this is really the first episode of The Prisoner that 100% says that, like, yes, we're willing to take this story that we set up and just go off the rails with it.
Mm-hmm.
And if this came second, I feel like the show would be playing its hand too early almost.
Yeah, I think we kind of touched on that at the beginning. Like, I think you would need, like, this is why I think Chimes of Big Ben is like probably the perfect episode to really go second, because it's concrete. It shows that escape is impossible, which is an important conceit for the whole show, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it has a very straightforward plan. I mean, and the plan is like, the plan is straightforward in the sense that you can understand what it is, but it's not like, it is kind of grandiose in its scope that they like fake his whole journey to London and everything.
Mm-hmm.
So it strikes that nice balance between abstract and concrete. And like, if you put this second, I feel like you would watch it and you'd be so confused because your understanding of this episode is pretty heavily predicated on understanding, one, that he can't really escape, because otherwise, why does he just wade into the water and then just turn around and leave when he sees the big white floaty thing? Two, that the village has basically like unending resources, and three, they're basically just trying to mess with him. Like, so
yeah, when this show is described, the summaries usually say like the village is trying to figure out why number 6 resigned. Yet that's now that we're watching this again, or now that I'm watching it again, I'm realizing that that's only true in like about half the episodes. The other half, they're just trying to mess with him or show their superiority. And I feel like you need to establish the fact that they're trying to figure out why he resigned early on, which they do in Arrival for sure. But they're just hammering it home in Chimes of Big Ben that like every week, or pretty much almost every week, this is what we're going to be doing. Number 6 is going to be trying to escape and figure out where he is. We're going to be trying to figure out why he resigned and not have him escape. And wow, what a weird slip. I just referred to the village as we. Oh my god, I didn't do that on purpose.
Yeah, I think, like, in a lot of the episodes, they're not explicitly trying to find out why he resigned necessarily, but by having it be established up to that point that that is what they're doing, you can kind of understand it implicitly in an episode, even if they don't ask, like, why did you resign? You know in the back of your mind that that's kind of the end goal of this whole scheme, and without establishing that, like, this episode would just be like, well, why did they do that?
Yeah. Number 6 just asks why at the end, and number 2 just freezes up like the general.
I wasn't ready for this. Smoke starts coming out of her head.
Wow, actually, now that I think about it, this goes back to what I was saying before, but I just had this weird realization that like Peter Pan is like a timeless character, a character for whom time has no meaning. Almost like in my sort of theory, or how I take this episode, like time for the village has almost no meaning because, like, you know, you say that this place was established recently, perhaps after the war, or maybe before it. But like, if it's always been like this, then that's kind of an indication. Or if like the seeds of the village were planted early on in like human history or whatever, and it was all just leading up to this, then like, yeah, Peter Pan is a perfect character because like time has no effect on him.
And he'll never grow up or old.
Yeah,
and you never stop dreaming.
Just how like number 6 will never escape. I'd say this is a pretty big loss for number 6.
Oh yeah. I mean, I don't see any way you could spin this as not a loss.
Yeah. You gotta wonder also how he escapes the angry mob. I guess they just maybe get tired of looking for him.
The time loop resets.
Yeah, I guess.
Look, we got an email from Sergeant Drano where he says there's no evidence for there being a time loop, but let me tell you, there's no evidence for there not being one either.
And that means it's right.
Yeah, I mean, he loses badly. He doesn't gain any information he doesn't gain any consolation from this episode at all. Like, even in some of the other losses, in things like Free For All, at least he gains some sliver of information about the village in those episodes, even though he lost. In this one, there's nothing. He just loses.
Yeah, I think Anorak Zone mentioned that too, of like, this is basically the bleakest episode of the show.
Even though in reality, like, it's not as dark as like some of the mental damage he's going to have from things like Many Happy Returns, where he realizes he can't even trust the people he used to work for,
yeah,
and then he can't even trust like London or the UK anymore.
And he's literally not safe like anywhere in the world.
Yeah. Still, I tend to agree with that. Probably. I mean, yeah, like he gets nothing in return for his loss this week.
Yeah.
Poor guy.
Who would you say is number one this week?
Honestly, could be number two.
Yeah, number two seems to be
it's number two.
I was having trouble coming up with one, so I just said that it was probably that guy in the intro sequence who, like, sleep gasses him. That guy dressed like a penguin.
I don't know. I could see it. I think it's number two because she just seems so, like, casually in charge. Like, she's just so... She shows no signs of being worried the plan's going to fail. She never even reveals her plan, really, because she plays it so close to her chest. She goes into a mysterious room to report to her superiors that we've never seen before, but, like, maybe it's just her office. Maybe she's just going to report to herself.
Oh my God.
Maybe she's reporting to the general.
Oh, yeah, maybe. Wow. She actually even stops a plan to figure out why he resigned. They're like, they're knee deep in this plan. She's like, stop this right now.
Halt, freeze. And they listen. They're just like, okay, yeah, all right.
Yeah.
The revelation in Fallout is going to be that everyone was number one. Is that it? Did I get it? Do I win?
Yep, you spoiled it. Congrats.
Everyone is number one.
Rover is number one. I shouldn't be making these jokes because, like, in a way, like, Rover being number one is not ruled out, you know? Unless I rule it out by making these dumb jokes.
Except, see, then the reveal for me might have even more impact because I think it wouldn't be the case because you made it a joke. And they'd be like, oh, shoot, Keon knew all along.
All right, yeah, sure. I guess you're technically still in the dark no matter what I say. Because I could just...
I mean, unless you just come out and say it, and then I'd be like, huh, wow.
Yeah, I'm not going to do that, though.
John Cena just shows up. John Cena's number one.
I actually have quotes this week, surprisingly enough.
Oh, so do I.
All right, well, why don't you say one of yours?
So my first one is a small exchange between number 6 and number 240, where she says questions are a prison and he says answers are a burden to oneself.
Right, mirroring that village slogan that we saw in Arrival.
I thought you were going to say pop. I don't know why I think that's the village slogan since it only appeared in the alternate chimes of Big Ben.
Yeah. Yeah, so one of mine is as long as it's what the majority wants, said by number 2. In response to... It was something at the beginning of the episode.
Oh, yeah, number 6 asks if he can, number 2 says he can do whatever he wants, and number 6 says, you mean as long as it's what you want? I can do whatever I want as long as it's what you want, and she says as long as it's what the majority wants.
Right. That's how that went down.
I don't actually have any other quote. Well, I have at some point number 2 says we're democratic in some ways. That's my last quote.
Yeah, that's a good one. Oh yeah, my other one is literally just the last few seconds of the episode. They don't know that you're already dead, locked up in the long box in that little room. She's no longer your observer. Observers of life should never get involved. And then number 6 goes, "You'll never win." And number 2 responds, "Then how very uncomfortable for you, old chap." Love
Old
that.
chap.
Yeah. Love that little exchange.
Old chap. That kind of, her saying old chap kind of plays into, at some point, number 6 is trying to figure out what country number 2 is from, and kind of tries to figure it out, like, based on her accent and how she speaks. And she says, well, and he surmises that she's English, and she says, well, I can't, it doesn't really matter, basically. And her saying old chap at the end is almost like her going, ha, gotcha.
Yeah. As in, like, you were right, but who cares whether you were right, because it doesn't matter, because you're already dead. We're faking your death, and you suck.
Yeah, kind of, yeah. But also in a way kind of being like, because it also almost comes off as her saying it just to throw him off, like, I can pretend to be whoever I want from wherever I want, so it doesn't even matter if you try.
True.
Figure it out.
Yeah. Or like potentially a rub in his face because he's English and so is she, and she's like in charge of the village for now, and he's a prisoner or something. Like his own country would do this or whatever.
Yeah. Gotcha, number 6. I almost said number 2. I was like, well, is it time for Britain's 10 actors?
Yeah, and I did the bare minimum for this.
Which is
Well, I just
what?
looked up Mary Morris as number 2, and then number 240, and then number 40, and Dutton.
I mean, I don't know who else you would look up besides that. So, I mean, I don't know if that's the bare minimum or, like, the maximum.
Well,
You want to start us off then? I mean, those are the same people I looked up, so it's...
yeah, Mary Morris had an extensive career before this. I didn't really recognize anything in, though, like other than this.
Doctor
Oh yeah,
Who?
she was in Doctor Who. She played someone in Kinda.
Yeah, Kinder. I thought, was she? No, she wasn't in
No, yeah, she wasn't in
Danger Man. A lot of people were in Danger Man in this episode,
the other
though.
3 that we're going to go into now all were.
Yeah, so we've got Duncan McRae as number 40 as the Doctor. He's our guy who died suspiciously close to the airing of this episode for the week.
Yeah, he died
dies
before
in
the
67.
episode came out.
Yikes. He was in the 1967 Casino Royale, the kind of parody Bond movie. He was also in the Avengers, Danger Man,
Yep.
I believe. That's pretty much everything I recognized, besides The Prisoner, obviously.
Right.
And a bunch of ITV Play of the Week,
Yeah.
as usual.
Yeah. So we have Norma West playing 240. She was in Danger Man. She's in a bunch of other stuff that, again, I didn't recognize, like the Ruth Rendell Mysteries. I have no idea what that is. But she was in Miss Marple. And then she was in some Agatha Christie stuff.
Nice. Getting that Agatha Christie representation on the show, I guess. And then I've got Alan White as Dutton. I almost said Duggan. Dutton. He was in The 10th Planet, Doctor Who, as Schultz. He was also in Danger Man, and then like nothing else that I really recognized, but quite a few like old television shows pre Danger Man years.
Yeah, so like the very beginning of television. Wow.
A lot of stuff in the late 50s. Tell It to the Marines, The Flying Doctor. So, an ITV television playhouse.
Heck yeah.
And that's that, I guess, for 10 actors for the week.
10 actors, more like 4. Yeah, we're slowly realizing that Britain has like way more than 10 actors as we journey across. I was going to say space and time, but no, it's really just time because we've only watched British shows.
I mean, the most bizarre thing is that nobody who's like really appeared on Star Cops has appeared on anything else we watched afterwards.
Star Cops is the latest show we've watched for Inevitable, though. So
Star Cops is such a weird, nebulous, like black hole of actors. Apparently. Yeah. All right, so we've got an email this week from noted prisoner expert Sergeant Drano. Subject line: The prisoner, the general. What is up, my dynamic duo? Here's some feedback for your episode on the general. The general. Order debate. I can see putting Schizoid Man before the general, but it sounds like you guys would still choose to put A, B, and C before the general. I don't get it. To me, that makes no sense for number 2's character arc, and of course doesn't match up with the new number 2 statement comment at the start of the general. I get that Dylan subscribes to some sort of reset theory that would negate any need for continuity at all, but is there anything in the canon to support this theory? It is clear that number 6 doesn't think he is brand new to the village every single week. He isn't reorienting himself every time. And if the village is trying to break and or win over number 6, would there be any advantage to resetting him back to baseline each week? Wouldn't that just erase any progress, any trauma he experienced in their latest attempt, and leave him just to resist as when he first arrived? I'm going to break from reading the rest of the email because it's quite long to respond to this already, but I think that there's no evidence to disprove this theory either. I mean, every episode can exist in its own continuity, right? Like, even continuity between episodes that you could draw could just be, I mean, just different timelines where the same or similar events happened off screen. I mean, I think the key to remember is that we don't see everything in these episodes, which is made explicitly quite clear by Dance of the Dead, because the crowd and most of the village wants to kill number 6 with their hands, and as evidenced by the fact that there are still 9 episodes to go in the show, he doesn't just eat it at the end of this episode, and we probably never find out how they calm that crowd down.
Yeah, we
off
don't.
Screen.
I'll just say it outright, we don't.
In some ways, I still think it would be easier to break number 6 on his first day in the village than like 20 months in when he's been there for so long and he's just like totally resolved to never give them anything. Like, when he doesn't know what's going on, I think it's easier. And I think, again, like, the not seeing things on screen can still play into the we don't see him get reoriented to the village every week, because we don't have to, because that could happen off screen prior to the events of the episode. But anyway, you guys mentioned a potential for 2 timelines. I don't see any real support for that either, as for the number 12s, we've seen the assignment of numbers in the village can be rather fluid. After all, we get a new number 2 every week, and I don't think anyone would argue that a quote new number 2 is also new to the organization that runs the village. Someone can work for the organization for quite a long time and still be a new number 2 or a new number 12. I think the key with the number 12s is the fact that explicitly the number 12 in the journal says he's been there for months and implies that he's been there as number 12 for months, but you proposed a comedy version of The Prisoner. I could totally see someone doing that with the current version. Can you imagine if someone took an episode and just edited a laugh track onto it? Imagine a laugh track after number 2 says, "How uncomfortable for you, old chap."
Instead of her laughing, it's a laugh track.
You ever watch that video that's like Big Bang Theory without the laugh track, and it's like the most awkward thing in existence?
Yeah. Well, in a way, every show where you take out a laugh track is awkward because there's these weird pauses in the show. But like, yeah, I know, I get what you mean. Like Big Bang Theory is not funny like whatsoever. It's only the laugh track that kind of makes you think that these jokes are actually real jokes and not just like trash that the writers vomited onto the page and turned in.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say, is that more so than other shows, Big Bang Theory depends on the laugh track for things being funny instead of the jokes themselves, and that's why it's so awkward. So, it's funny how you say maybe number 6's job is to escape, because a couple of fan theories relate to this. One proposes that number 6 actually works for the village and is there to test its security and effectiveness. Another theory is that number 6 got captured on purpose in order to infiltrate the village to investigate and expose the organization that operates it. You guys are totally correct at how the prisoner is nearly perfect at writing the ambiguity line. It provides just enough background, just enough clues, and is just internally consistent enough to get a viewer to think that if they analyze it hard enough, they can still solve the mysteries. Watching the show, you really can get the feeling that true answers exist, even if perhaps they don't. Still, trying to put all these puzzle pieces together in a way that fits can be really entertaining. It's the same feeling that Lost gave me for most of its run. Number 6's arm wound, he got poked in the arm by that pointy USB thing. I want to introduce you to the number 6 fight equation. 6 greater than 2, but 3 greater than 6. In other words, number 6 can take on 2 combatants and win almost every time, but 3 combatants will beat him almost every time. You guys seem to think that the general and speed learn were not that effective, and if they could just rebuild it anyway. I think the story means for us to believe it is permanently destroyed because the professor invented it, and he is now dead. As for effectiveness at brainwashing, I think you underestimate his capabilities. When prompted, speed learn can force you to give the quote correct unquote answer whether you want to or not. Suppose they program everyone to believe the Holocaust wasn't real or that obedience equals happiness. It literally was a near perfect form of brainwashing thought control. Oh well, I've run out of time, so I'll hit you up with more later. Namaste, Sergeant Drano, Station 7, the door. Well, I mean, your argument completely falls apart because you state, suppose they program everyone to believe the Holocaust wasn't real, except that's not what they're doing. Speedlearn is based on memorization. So all people would memorize is the ability to regurgitate that if someone says, hey, what was the Holocaust? They would say it's not real, but that makes no comment and no connection with their belief, I guess is the thing. Like, that's the thing about Speedlearn is that it's all rote memorization. Sure, you can get everybody to answer correctly whenever you ask them a question, but that doesn't mean they believe what they're saying. Nor does it mean they believe you, nor does it say anything about what they believe. Which is, I think, is the core of brainwashing.
Maybe if enough people start saying it, it'll start to be believed. You know, like that episode of South Park where Cartman lies so much that he starts believing his own lies.
I mean, I guess.
And if that's, plus also, like, if that's all you, if you can only answer, like, just to use that example of that the Holocaust wasn't real, if that's the only thing you can say because you've been brainwashed by Speedlearn, then, like, that'll get passed down to future generations because you have no other choice but to say that.
Except you do have a choice because the way it's presented in the episode is Speedlearn only allows you to say those things as an answer to a question. So you could still teach your kids, like, oh, the Holocaust was this thing that happened. Just if they asked you a specific question, you'd say, well, it's not real, because, again, Speedlearn, the way it's presented, only allows you to program them as answers to questions.
Oh, well, I don't know. I mean, yeah.
So, because it's kind of like I could just have a perfectly normal conversation with a friend about how the Holocaust was terrible and all these people died and how it was a complete stain on the human race. Completely fine, at least based on the way that Speedlearn operates now, as long as someone didn't ask the, like, very exact same question that Speedlearn taught me to answer, which is, you know, what, I don't know what question you would phrase, like, was the Holocaust real? And, like, how many people are gonna, like, in a casual conversation just drop that exact question? Like, you know, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know if the episode gives us enough information to say, like, with any certainty, like, how effective Speedlearn would be or not, type thing.
I guess. I mean, I'm just like going off of, like...
people. Yeah, I just don't know.
The way I read the episode is that it is all just, like, memorization and answering questions. Literally learn.
Well, that's what Sergeant Drano is also touching on with when he says, like, the show gives you just enough to kind of think that you can piece it together. But also, at the same time, it'll just throw in... At times, it'll just throw in, like, some contradictions here and there and be like, well, deal with it. And that will never get explained. That the show will never try and wave away in any way. And I really like that about this show, how it kind of just will occasionally throw in something that's just really weird and just has no explanation, and that you kind of just have to do your own legwork to reconcile.
Yeah, I mean, I really like that too. I do think that you can believe whatever you want, really, about the Speedlearn brainwashing thing. And
maybe you've been Speedlearned already without knowing it into believing that you can believe whatever you want about Speedlearn.
I guess. I was just going to say, Drano also says that he asserts that we're supposed to believe at the end that it's permanently destroyed. But I think that the line "creation arises from destruction" was included in that episode for a very specific purpose, and even if it doesn't imply the general is going to be rebuilt, I think it does imply that the destruction of the general will lead to other, potentially more damaging to number 6's psyche methods to extract the information from him.
Yeah, it's almost the same as in this episode, actually, where he destroys the machine, yet it still works.
Yeah, that's actually like a really interesting point. So I'm glad you brought that up. Yeah, he destroys, allegedly, the telex machine in this, and then it just starts working again. Like, we have no way of knowing that didn't happen with the general, right? Like, again, that ambiguity. That's weird, because now this episode kind of reframes the ending to the general, almost. Because at the end of the general, yeah, you're like, oh, well, I guess it's destroyed. But you could look for those clues, like, creation arises from destruction and all that. But like now in this episode where we see him just allegedly destroy that machine and then it just starts working again, you think back and like, wow, was it really destroyed or did it just like start working again as soon as number 6 left the room? And we don't know. Damn.
Well, Dylan's mind is just blown.
I don't know, I just like how some of the later episodes like reframe some of the things we've seen earlier. Kind of like how I talked on Twitch with how Death in Heaven kind of reframes like Susie's "there's nothingness after you die" kind of thing with the whole nethersphere. Like this, with the telex machine being destroyed, reframes the general's destruction as potentially, but not necessarily, being not as final as the episode presented it to be. And I have a feeling we're going to have more of those kind of reframing moments when we get to the end of the season.
Maybe, I don't know. Like I said, I barely remember from 9 to 14. Like, I just have no memory of those episodes. Or like 13. I remember the last 4 pretty well.
Well, I guess you're about to experience next week's episode for the first time, for the second time, for the third time. But thanks for reaching out, Sergeant Reno. Lots of insightful commentary there in your email, I think. Lots of food for thought to digest and think about. And looking forward to hearing your thoughts on this episode. Other than that, I don't have anything else to talk about or any other messages to read.
No, neither do I.
Well, then I guess on that note, you can reach us at thedoctor@decorativevegetable.com. Questions, comments, concerns, angry rants, love letters, your thoughts on Dance of the Dead. You can find us on YouTube at Decorative Vegetable. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, and Stitcher. All at Inevitable, a classic sci-fi podcast. Be sure to leave a rating if you like the show.
Check us out on Facebook, Trust Your Doctor, like us on Facebook, also check us on Twitter at TYD Podcast, and follow us on Twitter. Next time we're going to be watching Checkmate, but until then, the end.